Hi, Josh here, and you're watching 610 Bob's Builds. Today, I am installing a re-engineered 2005 F250 Power steering box into my YJ. You know, the Jeep that I installed a Dana 60 into that also came from an F250 pickup truck. Why? Because reasons. The F250 Power steering box is completely different from my Jeep's Power steering box, so a new mount has to be made. Unfortunately, I'm missing a ton of footage on this, so please bear with me.
Here is what we will be making. This mount bolts to and clamps to the frame. This is the inner mount, the main piece of the mount. This piece bolts to the frame using the original steering box mounting points. That piece is a piece of angled steel. I milled out slots for bolts that will go into the original mount on the frame. I also cut a clearance spot so that it sits flush on the frame. I then take some 3/8 plate and clamped it to the frame. Then I marked out the original bolt hole using a drill bit. After drilling the hole, I bolt the plate to the frame and tacked a piece of angled steel to the plate.
I then remove the assembly and finish welding. Yeah, this is a quick and dirty build.
The power steering box needs to sit on some standoffs so that it sits flat. The power steering box extends past its mounting tabs. The standoffs are made out of DOM tubing.
Power steering box placement doesn't need to be super precise, so I simply lined up the box on my Jeep and marked placement for one of the power steering box's mounting bolts. I then drilled out the hole into my frame and transferred that hole to my mount.
I then placed the inner mount in a vise. The power steering box is bolted to a spacer which is sitting in the hole that I just made. I turned down some 1/2-inch bolts to have a point on one end. I then threaded these bolts into the 2 remaining mounting tabs on the power steering box. After making sure that the box is fairly level and at the correct angle, I use marking fluid and something sharp to scribe the points where I will need to drill. I then drill the holes for the spacers. I do this on the mill because my drill press isn't wired in. This isn't super precise, and well, that bit me in the butt a little. The spacers didn't line up 100%, but after some messing around with it, widening the holes a little and drilling out the spacers a hair, I was able to get it to work.
I then tack in the spacers, remove the power steering box, and finish welding the spacers to the mount. Video which is missing, dumb GoPro. Or SD card, I can't remember.
The spacers on the outside of the mount were longer than they needed to be. For some reason, I thought that the mill would be the best solution for this job. I didn't even whack off the majority of the excess with a bandsaw, which would have been the smart thing to do. If this wasn't such a big steering box, we would be done. But it is. And I'm afraid that it would rip through the frame, so I designed it as a clamp. We just finished the inner part, so let's look at the outer plate, of which there is 0 footage. Oi. But it ain't complicated. It's just a 3/8-inch thick steel plate. It is doubled at the top because it extends past the frame. It does this for this clamp that sits above the frame. This clamp ties the top part of the inner bracket to the frame. The clamp is just angled steel with one side cut down. I square the inside radius so that it sits fully on the inside mount. Then I milled a flat spot on some headless 3/8-inch bolts. I welded them to the clamp. Okay, back to the outside plate. I oversized the holes because I wanted the plate to be able to move around a bit.
I later nullified that by making the washers fit so tightly. Anyway, washers! Wait, we have video on this.
Yeah, turning a basic washer on a lathe. Let's just soak in this videography for a moment. And back to the pics. This second washer is made out of 1/4-inch plate. I did this because it has to support 2 bolts. One bolt is for the bracket and the other one is for the power steering box. I made this by drilling 2 holes. Then I ground one side until it fits snugly. I then removed everything that is not needed. Basically, I cut down and ground off the corners. This makes it fit better and it makes it lighter, but more importantly, it makes it look pretty.
Then I powder coat and install the bracket. Because it's so large, I will eventually make an output shaft brace for the power steering box. But the Jeep steers, so we're done. Wait, what? It doesn't steer? What are you talking about? Okay, so it turns out this is way more complicated and no sane person should ever attempt this.
So, an F250 pickup truck pushes the pitman arm toward the front of the truck. Jeeps point the pitman arm to the back. I can rotate the pitman arm after some modifications, but that reverses the direction.
So when you steer right, you turn left. Oy. How do we fix this? By making a swing link, but that's another video. Subscribe so you don't miss it.